Travis, and I am chair of the committee. To my right is Wendy Anderson, vice chair, David Story, alternate, Joan Martin, regular member. To my left is Rick Sager, counsel for this, for the town of Durham, and Richard, a regular member. One of our alternates and one of our regular members are not present tonight. I will hereby appoint David Shigori to sit in as a regular member of the board for the duration of this case. The first item on the agenda was ethics policy acknowledgement. I will be postponing that to our next meeting as all the paperwork is not arrived. Next, we have an application for ZBA case number 2017-001 April for map 206, lot 10 and lot 11. This is for a request for a special exemption for a commercial business in an area zone, residential, recreation, and architecture. First off, does any member of the ZBA feel they have a conflict of interest or something that should be disclosed to the general public and the applicant?
I don't see a conflict personally, but if anybody has a problem, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I have sold a house to, I believe, one of the abutters, and in the last few months, and I also worked for a couple of members of the Winnebago Country Club, and I understand here that I don't think they're direct about this.
Where's that?
Does any member of the board feel that there is a conflict? I also would disclose that at one time I was a fire inspector for the town of Durham, and I was the inspector responsible for reviewing and approving the construction and renovations of the Lake Winnipesaukee Golf Course. Must be 10, 12 years ago. I don't feel that's a conflict of interest. Does anybody feel there's a conflict? Okay, the next order of business then is a determination as to whether the application as received is complete. I would note on page 5 of the large plans that we received, there is a typographical error, and you need to delete the reference to Center Barnstead. You do also include all the appropriate New Durham information. Actually, board have questions or comments in regards to whether or not the application as submitted is complete, other than that one item.
My application has no case number and I didn't find it.
The case number and the date file was added to the original last week when I noticed that there was no case file number assigned. We are within our statutory 30 days of having a public hearing within 30 days of submission of the application. Are there any other questions on the application in regards to its completeness? Would someone care to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept this application as complete.
There's a motion to accept the application as complete by Vice Chair Anderson. Is there a second? Mr. Shigori has seconded the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting the application as complete, say aye. Aye. 5 ayes. Hopefully there's no nays or abstentions. The motion passes 5-0. Next on our agenda, now that the application has been deemed complete, will be a public hearing for ZBA case number 2017-001-April, Green Oak Excavation. The following notice has been was publicly posted on March 9th. The Town of Durham zoning board of adjustment public notice, Tuesday, April 11th, 2017, 7 p.m. at the Durham Elementary School Gymnasium, Green Oaks Excavation. You are hereby notified that a public hearing will be held by the Durham Zoning Board of Adjustment at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, April 20th, 2017 at the Durham Elementary School Gymnasium. The meeting is regarding an application submitted by Barney Engineering on behalf of Green Oak Realty owner Keith Babb for a special exception to allow a commercial business, parentheses, gravel pit excavation operation located on Kings Highway in New Durham, map 206, lot 10 and lot 11. This location is currently zoned rural, architectural, and residential.
Excuse me, would that be agricultural, not
Anybody who
architectural?
wishes to approach the board needs to come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and then be recognized by the board.
Steve Peterson, 40 Friar Tuck Way, Wolfboro. You have mentioned architectural twice. Is that a mispronunciation on your part? Should that be agricultural?
Yes.
You are correct, it is agricultural.
Thank you.
The public hearing will be conducted as follows. The applicant will speak and without interruption, other than minor clarifying questions from the board. Once his presentation is complete, the zoning board members will ask questions of the applicant. After that, town officials from the Durham, Middleton, and Wolfboro will be invited to speak and be questioned by the ZBA. These are the town officials that have been officially appointed to represent their respective communities. Abutters, as defined by RSA 672:3, will then be invited to speak and to be questioned by the board. After that has been completed, interested public may speak, and they will be questioned by the board. All individuals who are going to speak must have signed in with Ms. Disco, our land use assistant. You must be recognized by the chair before speaking, approach the microphone, stating your name, spelling it if requested, and relationship to the case. You must speak to the case. Speakers will request permission from the chair if they wish to speak to someone else. Because of the size of the crowd, I ask that there be no side conversations, as we want to be able to hear everybody's comments and not have any misconstrued. Any individual that has spoken to the ZBA will not speak again until all members of the public have had an opportunity to speak. Once everybody has had the opportunity to speak, the applicant will be invited for rebuttal and questions from the board. Town officials will be invited for rebuttal and questioning, followed by abutters and then the interested public. If we get through all of the public comments tonight, depending on the hour, we will determine whether or not we are going to begin deliberations. Because we do have another case after this that we are going to be looking into. Are there any questions about the rules of the public hearing? Then I would ask Thomas Barney, representing the applicant, to take the floor and to use the microphone.
Keith Babb is not here. He has a cottage in Maine, an hour and a half north of Bangor. His wife was snowmobiling. An accident happened. He took her to the hospital. They operated on her foot, got her released, at 3 o'clock and is driving from Bangor to here and will come here if he makes it in time, which might be a couple hours from now, I'm not sure. He could be in Biddeford or Saco, Maine now, somewhere along that. And, I'm hopeful that we can have a fair hearing. This is important, and I expect that that will happen. This doesn't have to be a large popularity contest. And I have some slides here that answer a lot of questions and concerns. I know people have fears about what we're doing, and it's in a sensitive area. So I'd like to go through my slideshow and answer all these questions and discuss the issues at hand. Okay, this represents Kings Highway.
You gotta speak in right into the mic, Mr. Barney.
This is the location of the properties, 44 acres that Keith Babb owns. This is the property line. New Durham is here. Wolfboro is here. He owns a gravel pit down here now that has been used. He's crushed ledge there by blasting it. He's crushed it with his crushing equipment, which comes in and crushes it and leaves. He's loaded it into dump trucks, and he's trucks it, hauled it down the road. We've been to the planning board to obtain approval for that, an expansion, and also to continue the permit, which expires every 4 years, and to have a restoration plan when it's done, and also an operational terrain permit from the New Hampshire DES. One of the abutters came to that hearing. That was in 2014. Nobody else. There were no complaints about what we were doing or what he was proposing to do. People are familiar with that, and they have no concerns. The next circle there is a gravel pit, which is owned by the town of Middleton. And over here is a pit, which is owned by Chuck McKay. And I've been to the planning board in New Durham 3 times over 4-year increments of expiring and renewing the permits, and no abutters have been to the meetings and complained, and those meetings were with 5 or 10 people in the room. So he would like to close this down, which is 17 acres, and operate it here. And that might be called repair and replace. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, repair and replace. And if we go to the next slide, the operation of the pit is for 9 months of the year. 3 months is closed during the wintertime. For 8 months of the year, what is in the pit is a front-end loader, and a dump truck would come in from the public, wants to be loaded. The operator of the front-end loader would start the loader up and load crushed stone or gravel into the truck would leave, and the rest of the day, the operator would just hang around the site. And that's what they do, that's how it works. For the other month of the season, it's broken into 3 weeks, individual weeks, where material is blasted, there's a drilling process to drill holes in the rock and dynamite it, and then, okay, I'm sorry. And then run it through the crusher and then develop stockpiles. And what you see on the site is a front-end loader, be the main occupant of the area of the pit, and a dump truck, which would be somebody, contractor's local truck that would come. It could be a landscaper's truck or whatever. Okay. And this is a crushing equipment, rock crusher that would crush the material. And this is blasted material after a blast. It gives you an idea what that is. And that is converted into stockpiles of stone of different gradations that are shown on the plan. On the site plan over there, I have stockpiles shown on that. And this is what the material is used for. On the upper left, that would be erosion, stormwater management. This is somebody building a driveway. This is a road being maintained. This is more stormwater measures, erosion control, same down here. This is a septic system. This is my farm truck that I use. Can haul 2 yards of crushed gravel. And I wanted Kate to put that with the other slides, but I love the farm truck, so. And the material, crushed gravel, is used to fill potholes like in my driveway. And this is a person doing erosion control, which is important. This is the area map of Wolfboro and surrounding areas. This is the location at the upper end of New Durham. If there's a contractor in the Wolfboro area who wants to buy crushed stone or gravel, whatever, he might come down to this site in East Alton and load his truck up and then go back to the area here. You might instead go up to Ossipee, because that's a source up there. What happens is this is not a source down here, it's a stockpile, so every day during the summer, a truck drives through Wolfboro to bring material down to this site. It's really over here. And that involves traffic that's driving through. This is the source that you can cut down on the traffic. The cost is reduced because it's a local source, and you don't have to go to Ossipee or East Alton or Barnstead to get the material. The next slide. The USGS map, and the property is in the middle here, and it shows that this is a side of a hill, where on one side, on the other side is the golf club, and that drops off into a valley here, a lot of wooded area here. Can't see the golf club, of course, here, through here. The clubhouse is 4,000 feet over here. The entrance to the golf course is 4,000 feet down this road. When I was doing the plans, I thought of the view shed, and I thought, well, there's no view shed. Somebody at the planning commission said, well, here's a view shed. If you have no trees, then you can see this site here, but that's not realistic. With all the woods, you can't see anything. And you might be able to see something from Copple Crown, but you're only going to see this hill. You're not going to see this operation. This is the zoning map. The orange is New Durham, residential, agricultural, and commercial, which is the whole town except for the...
Non-commercial.
Okay, except for the mixed unit area in the town, in the village, and this is Wolfboro, which is rural and residential rural, and this is Kings Highway, which is a good-sized highway that goes through here, and this has a lot of houses. It is residential, nice land, nice houses, nice neighborhood, nice town of Wolfboro. On this side, it's the same, but it gets sparser as you go this way. So The line here is the town line, which was established in the 1700s. And we are sensitive to the fact that we are on that line, and there are houses around and neighbors around, and all the concerns, and the intent here is to make this compatible with the neighborhood and design it as such. Okay, to build something in New Durham, you have to consider the requirements in the zoning and the land use rules. One of them is can't be on an aquifer zone. So here's an aquifer here that goes to Shaw's Pond area, and this is the golf course. This goes to Russ Pond, or at least what I'm saying is it's connected there, and that has, in my opinion, environmental issues when you have green grass with sprinkler systems, fertilizer, drives the nitrogen into the aquifer, which goes towards Russ Pond, which has long-term implications. Okay. Okay, the next slide is unfragmented land. All this land here is fragmented. The houses here are fragmented. The golf course is fragmented. Everything there. We're not in a fragmented area. That'd be a large area of land that hasn't been developed. We're not there. We're not into unfragmented land. We're not 1,000 feet off the road. We're next to the road, so we're all okay on that requirement. The next slide is wildlife protection areas. The red is highest habitat. It's in the New Hampshire map, I believe. And that is across the street in the Beaver Brook area. It's in the golf course, and that shouldn't be there. That was destroyed years ago. It's a golf course, not a habitat. It was the Perry Brook habitat area, but there's nothing there. It's open areas for golf course. Not many animals are habitat there. This is a conservation focus area that is that's covered under zoning, and you can't be in a yellow area. So we found a location where we've tiptoed through the tulips and not destroyed any. We have a safe area which is buildable. There aren't many alternatives to find when you have to go through the requirements and find areas that you can build on. It's difficult. So when you do have a site, it should be given some weight to that it is a source of material in the town that helps build roads, build houses as part of the infrastructure. It should be valued as such because it's hard to get there. Next slide is my site plan. The area of the operation is here, and it's surrounded by trees, which is obviously the green area. The plans that have been on the internet have been upgraded since we did that last fall, and I have a 100-foot vegetative strip here. I've added a berm here, which is a visual berm and a sound berm, so you can't see it, or you don't see very much if you're on the road here. I've added a well on the property so that dust can be suppressed. I've added parking spaces. There'll be a porta potty on the site. I've added a fence here so that the neighbor on the left won't be able to see this. I've removed the stockpile area that I had on there. So we've designed this into the area to be most amenable to the area of the neighborhood. We're concerned about these 5 houses right here, in my opinion. The golf course is is over here. We can't see the golf course, we can't hear them, vice versa and so forth, and Sherwood Forest is over here. But I myself am concerned about the 5 abutters. I provided a traffic study. We'll get that out. And the traffic study is for the planning board and deals with site distance and traffic volume. The state of New Hampshire has a traffic counter at the Wolfboro town line and also at the Middleton town line. And they've recorded data since 2001 in 3-year time periods. I mean, they record it per week, but every 3 years they do it. So we have in the traffic study all that data tells us that we're at. So we know the volume of Wolfboro or Middleton Road, Kings Highway is about 1,500 gallons a day. If we figure 15, 30 trucks a day, which is not realistic, it'd be 5, 10, 15 trucks. So it's a retail operation of who wants to buy material that comes that day. That would be a 2% increase in traffic. Okay, so this is an engineered plan showing site distance. If you're on a state highway, which is not, this is a local road, but if you're on a state highway, the site distance would be 400 feet in either direction. So we looked at that, and we have over 400 feet going either direction. That makes this a safe entrance. And I've shown maneuver distance on there, so if you make a right-hand turn to go this way, you have enough room to go and catch up to the speed of traffic without impeding a vehicle coming this way if you have, I believe it's 330 feet of sight distance this way. And then if you were turning left, you'd be able to come out, make that turn, get up here. And 390 feet, I believe, you'd be able to get up to speed without impeding traffic. So we don't need a a breakdown lane there. That's adequate. There's not enough volume for that. And then the Middleton Road was reconstructed 2 years ago. That was a state highway converted to a town road with some money from the state, some strings attached. And surprise number one of this investigation here is that the road has 5 1/4 inches pavement in this cross section there, and that is more than the typical road, which is 3 inches, and that makes the road strong, like it would be a state highway like Route 11 or Route 28. So it has a lot of pavement. It's kind of a surprise. It's built for a lot of traffic. And down here shows a detail for geo grid, which is placed under the subgrade to reinforce the bed of the road, which is an extra improvement, which is a big deal. It's something that's modern, and that solidifies the road, makes that road extra strong, and it can handle all the traffic that's going to be on there for a lot of years. And I did a noise impact study. Can you hold that up?
Looking for traffic study.
Okay. This is the study here that goes to the planning board, what they look at and discuss and go over. So from a table in the Federal Highway Administration, we can get a value for the noise of the dump truck, the front end loader, a rock crusher, and a backup alarm. And these decibels, and these are the most noise that the front end loader would make when they scoop into a pile of crushed stone. It's not an average, it's a high number. And then we can project that sound that goes over to the neighborhood to see what the sound is at each individual house, Trites, House, Buell, Kendall, and so forth. And we start off by knowing that the ambient noise in a rural area is 40 decibels. That's being out in the middle of the woods with nobody around. There is sound from wind and insects, etc. That's about 40 decibels. We know that when you have a highway, the highway makes noise, and we can compute that for a vehicle that's going 35 miles an hour, which is the speed limit, and 1,500 cars a day, and that would give us a number of 57 decibels. There, 50 feet either side of the road, so that's a line of 57 decibels here, 57 decibels here, and then as we move back, the sound reduces or attenuates itself by a logarithmic formula. We go here, it is reduced. I can't read that number, but it's reduced. And if we go to the next slide, you can put the dump truck and the front end loader here and project the sounds of those. And we get from the computer, which is simple calculation, we can compute the sound at these two houses, which I believe is like 52 decibels. It's lower than the 57, so there's no notice of that sound on this side of the road here. On this side, it goes up 5 decibels, so that's a little bit noticeable. And over here, it goes up 5 decibels there. The calculations that I've used is a simple program because there's 4 vehicles here, there's 5 receptors. Doing the calculation, even though it's a real simple program, I get these numbers, but it doesn't include trees, soft ground, or line of sight. Line of sight here makes a difference because there's a hill in the way. The line of sight here goes direct. There, so that's why I've added a fence here, not as a sound barrier, but it helps. And I've included this sound barrier here to reduce the sound. Okay, now this has the rock crusher in the pit area. That makes more noise. So when I do the computations, I get higher numbers around the outskirts here. These come a little bit higher, but you have to hear 3 decibels before you even notice a change. If it goes up 5 decibels, then you can notice a change. This is less than what's in the road. There's no impact on this side of the road for noise. Over here, this gets up a little bit higher to 58, or it might, yeah, 58, 59, same over here. So what does this mean? The town of Wolfboro and the town of New Durham have a noise ordinance each, and those for somebody having a wedding, lighting off fireworks, kind of a nuisance thing, so disregarded that. I've done the noise impact study for the site itself with the equipment. And the state of New Hampshire has no standard. In other towns, when they deal with noise, they come up with different numbers of what's acceptable at the property line or what's acceptable so far from the property. One guide is the DOT has a guide that when they build a highway, they know they're going to increase the noise from the traffic, and they have a threshold of 67 decibels. And after that, they would consider a noise fence or barrier. And the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, we have a threshold of 65 where they don't want the noise to be above that level. The EPA has a threshold of 55 with a 5 decibel increase. And the Federal Aviation has a number of 65. If there were a standard, which will happen someday in the future, the threshold would be 60 or 65, and we're below that on this site. So we're okay in the sound. We've implemented a shield there, the berm,
Talk into the mic, please. Thank you.
and we could implement further steps at the planning board process. Another study I did is the,
What about this microphone in front of your mouth, do you not understand?
okay, I did a vibration impact study. Human beings can pick up sound easily on their feet. The state of New Hampshire has a guidance document for that because they do work where they compact fill on roads and they do hammering on ledge. And they have a calculation, which I've done, and they have a threshold, which is right here, 0.006, 0.015 feet, inches per second. I've done the calculation based on the distance. The equipment there is not vibratory, it's not on tracks for the most part. It's a dump truck and a front end loader, which are rubber tired. I calculated if there was a pothole in the road and you hit that pothole, there'd be a vibration. Then I carried the distance over across the street, and the vibration there is this number, 0.005, which is below the threshold for somebody to recognize that there's a vibration. As far as blasting goes, the new town of New Durham has a regulation that covers blasting. That covers everything. That's a document that works. The company that does the blasting is Maine Drilling and Blasting. They would come on site, look around and see what's around for houses and what would be of concern to them, and they determine how they're going to blast. They follow this by the letter. You put a seismograph 5 feet from the neighbors' houses around there to get a reading on the vibration. They'd sound alarm, they'd send notices out to the abutters and so forth. So that's something that stands on its own. I'm not doing any more than that. That's a planning board item and that needs to be carried out, will be carried out. That's the process. If they damage something, they fix it, they own it. You're not going to just do anything reckless because it doesn't work that way. And this is a slide of environmental hazards. The Shorewood Forest has a community well. The state has a program of trying to protect that well. They encourage towns to do planning around that. It's called a wellhead protection area, and the radius for this well is 1,500 feet. Some of that is on Keith Babb's land here. Okay, there we go. We're basically out of that. We're not interfering, contributing, or whatever with that. The state has this guidance document which encourages the town to adopt regulations for that, and it also encourages the association to be involved and to talk to all the people within that radius about what they're doing. It tells them how to do it. So if somebody were having a dog grooming business in the neighborhood, that somebody would go talk to them and say, what are the detergents and soaps they're using? Are they hazardous? And that's very important. And that's how community wells are protected. And so those are planning materials. The DES has the same scenario, which is a voluntary groundwater sampling plan, which is not a regulation. They asked the towns to adopt this, but this would be a requirement through the alteration of terrain permit that would be part of that application. And this has a 2,000-foot radius, and all the houses that have artesian wells are listed here. Registered letters gone out to each of them asking them if Keith Babb could test their water. like to have 2 people allow their well water to be tested. At the beginning of a season, 2 samples would be drawn from 2 wells and submitted to a lab, and there'd be a protocol for doing that, and that would be the background level. And then 30 days after a blast, the samples are taken again from 2 wells, submitted to the lab, recorded, and then as other blasts are done during the year, there could be 3 blasts. Those would be taken samples and documented, and the idea is to make sure nothing from the blast gets into anybody's well. So that's a measure of trying to protect neighbors' wells. This is the zoning and land use. So we look at the how we comply with the zoning, and we look on general uses, and it says in there that if somebody removes 1,000 cubic yards or more of clay, sod, loam, sand, gravel, for either private use or for sale, will require compliance with the New Durham excavation regulations and will be in compliance with RSA 155E. So that's good, and that includes gravel pit excavations in the zoning. So we know it's in the zoning there, and then we don't see anything else in the zoning regarding gravel pits. So we go back to the top of the page, and it says applicability, and then we read this, and it says, provisions of this section apply throughout the town of Durham unless otherwise addressed specifically in the overlay district articles of this zoning and land use ordinance, other local regulation or state or federal regulations. So it says, unless otherwise addressed by regulation. And to me, I think that's the end of it. So we would go straight to excavation regulations, which is this document over here. You hold it.
Yep.
And from this document, we would proceed to the planning board, and they would cover the issues of safety, environmental, and operation, and so forth, of the regulations. And the town of New Durham adopted their own regulations, so they would be in control of it. State RSA for New Hampshire requires all towns in the state to give a permit for somebody to do an excavation. That's how roads are built. So we know that that's in the background. We know an excavation permit can be granted. This is a higher level where the town has adopted that. I don't see in the zoning how that connects to commercial use or industrial use. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's beyond my comprehension. And if it was commercial or industrial, then you have to choose which one is it. There's no table in the zoning ordinance to show if something needs a special exception, which other towns normally have. New Durham only has 2 zones. Other towns have multiple zones to make it a little bit clearer. There's nothing that says you need a special exception. So that'll be discussed. So once you get to the earth regulations of town of New Durham, the goals of the regulation are to provide for reasonable opportunities for excavation, minimize safety hazards which can be created by open excavations, ensure that the public health and welfare will be safeguarded, protect natural resources and the environment during and after excavation, and maintain the aesthetic features of the town during and after excavation. So this is where the town planning board provides protection for the public and the neighborhood for excavations, and I've been through that. That's what they do, have great respect for the town of New Durham. They have very comprehensive regulations in the town. They cover everything. They do the work. We spend 3 or 4 meetings. We've done that with the Chuck McKay permit, like I said, and Keith Babb's other permit. And you don't have to worry about the New Durham Planning Board doing its work. This is the 1978 most suitable map, which is in the town hall, and it's mentioned under commercial and industrial uses, and it says you have to be in a most suitable area. Well, I took a picture of that map and blew it up, and the land is in this area, which is in the most suitable area. So we're okay in that.
In 1970.
Another requirement in the zoning ordinance is the steep slope rules, which apply to us. That's land that's over 15%. You disturb so much, which we are doing, you need to go to the planning board for a conditional use permit. We can do that, or that could be included with the excavation permit. That needs to be decided by somebody, maybe the zoning board, but we can comply with that. We meet the zoning requirements on that. In the state RSA 155 regulations, it says that you have to have all necessary land use permits obtained. It doesn't say when. The question here is the alteration of terrain permit that goes to the state. If I did that now, I would end up going to the planning board and changing it. If I submit it to the state and had to make changes, they don't like that. There are an intense group of people over there. I don't want to waste my time. They don't want to waste their time. That gets done during the planning board process. And then it goes to Concord when the plans are finalized. This is a schematic of surprise number 3. I looked at the land. I realized that this is a developer's dream. If there's no wetlands on this property, no streams, this is ideal to just cut off lots. There's 1,406 feet of frontage. Zoning requirements 150 feet, 80,000 square feet of area for a lot. So you have 9 lots here. It'd be 9 homes, 9 driveways. This has a fiscal impact on the town of New Durham in terms of school population, landfill cost, so forth. Any one of these people here could be building something unsightly, storing boats with blue tops on them, or be a contractor with a bunch of building supplies, or 1 or 2 junk vehicles scattered around the lot. Could be unsightly, could be more unsightly than what people perceive as what we're trying to do. This is a letter from the realtor about property values. He says it will not have any effect because it's a small operation. I asked him about that, or how do you do that? He says, well, it's a small operation. There are other gravel pits in the area. People know what gravel pits are. They accept those. There shouldn't be any reducing of property values.
Who is this letter?
Because it's Jason Starr, E-Star Realty. I've known him a long time. He does the work for Keith Babb. I feel that it meets that requirements. That's his letter. That's in the file. I also did stormwater drainage, which was brought up, and I have that for the planning board, and that has to do with computing rainfall runoff and on the land and how to infiltrate it. So today, no water leaves the land, and it all has to be infiltrated as this project gets developed. I have an infiltration basin over on this plan here. This computes that for different storm events. I have it done for the 50-year event. And this is an inspection and maintenance log, which is a requirement of the planning board for the owner to sign on to this, that he will maintain these measures and that he will record when he repairs any damage from after a rainfall event and document it. It's kind of modern stormwater practice in the Lakes region. And that is the end. So I thank you.
PowerPoint presentation, but I personally was not able to write down all the figures. And also, have you provided her with a copy of the letter from the Realtor? I will start with Mrs. Richards, if you have questions for Mr. Harvey on his presentation.
You didn't mention a lot about the blasting practices. Is that, can you go into a little bit more detail about how that's done, drilling blast holes, the actual blast, that sort of thing?
Yeah, a drilling rig is brought to the property and it drills holes and then it leaves. Drills enough holes to blast a small area. Blasting company comes, that would be Main Drilling and Blasting. They're the biggest one in the Northeast. They're specialized in doing that. It's better to have them do it with all the liability and not somebody else or the owner. So they would put dynamite in the holes and set off a blast, but they would follow the procedures that New Durham has written comprehensively how to do that, and that would be notifying, blowing a whistle, and so on. And I can't add to that. That's a regulation that they follow anyway. I can't make that any better.
As far as noise level for that drill rig, and how often it will be out there, if there's going to be, did you say 3 blasts a year, 4 blasts a year?
Yeah, when they want to blast an area to create broken up ledge, they would bring the drill rig in and that would be there for a few days. And then that would be parked off to the side and leave, and then the blasting company would come in and then blast it. They would leave, and then the rock crusher comes in and crushes it up for a week, and then leaves, and then it's left to the front end loader and whoever happens to drive in. Is that all of your question? Did I miss something?
Noise level of that drilling?
Pardon me?
The noise level of.
Okay, yeah, the noise. No, I don't see the noise as a problem. I used to work for the State Highway Department on road construction. And I've done blasting in the area. I've hired dynamite people to do blasting for work that I've done. I don't see, it's just a kind of a rumple noise. It's a real, kind of, all the blasting I've heard is a dull noise. And that would happen 3 times a year, so, I mean, if there's going to be noise, it would happen 3 times when everybody's notified.
Do you have a little bit more detail on the celebration area?
Yeah. Yeah, I calculated the area that would be developed, expanding that area to future development, and that's impervious. When it rains, it's going to hit ledge and run off. We can quantify that volume for a given storm, which would be a 50-year storm, and I could compute it for a 100-year, and that water ends up to the left of the property, and then I can take in an infiltration area based on the hydrology of the soil. I dug a test hole. Soil is Group A, which is the best soil. Test hole is a little weak on that, but the soil has an organic layer, and then it has a subsurface layer, and then there's a parent layer, and if you leave the top layers intact, then that infiltrates the water quite well. It provides treatment If you were to change that into a pond, then you would lose the infiltration capacity of those upper soil layers, and you'd be in the parent soil layer, which has less of an infiltration rate, and you'd lose the trees. The trees absorb a lot of water. So what I've designed is like, I don't know, it's an acre of infiltration area. It's a low area where water goes now, and that will handle all the water. If it doesn't handle, that's a problem. We can't direct water anywhere off the site. We have to handle it, and we can do that.
So, sort of, you mean as it's not,
The best way is the natural way.
have you done any test pits in the excavation area itself?
No, I know that's all ledge. My test pits are off to the side of the infiltration area.
We don't know anything about groundwater levels?
Groundwater, no, the groundwater levels on that plan is computed to be below the lowest part of the land because it's on a hill. It drops off towards the golf course. The neighbor's well is 800 feet deep. There's no expectation of water being there because it's on a hill like this, and it drains off. The water table would not be there. If we were on the side of a hill excavating on the end of a hill, then we would expect groundwater. But this is a hump, and it's lower on the other end of the hill, and it's lower around us. So groundwater level there in the ledge would be lower than what we're dealing with.
You indicated on your documentation that you had a 4-year projection. Is that simply your projection in order to remove all the materials? Could it go less? Could it go longer?
It would go over the 4-year period and have to be renewed, go to another 8-year period, and then maybe a 12-year period. So the area that's shown on the plan would go out to 12 years. So I wanted to show the planning board what the total impact would be, but the immediate area of the permit for 4 years would be a lot smaller than that area.
You indicated that you would be using a blasting company, and more than likely they would bring the materials in each day. If plastic materials must be kept overnight because of weather delay, the operation, or something else, what security measures are going to be in place to protect the public from the blasting materials?
I don't know this. I don't believe they're stored overnight. Keith Babb could answer that, but I think he's on the main turnpike, getting closer. But the blasting company, they have regulation about that. I don't see anybody leaving anything overnight there. It wouldn't be a good thing. I don't think that would happen.
The excavation area is marked on your documents. How far from the fence line is it to the property line for the golf course in the rear?
I think it's 500 feet. Oh, to the golf course in the rear? Well, I don't know. That would be 1,500 feet, I'm just guessing. That's over a hill and down the steep slope and then over a stream, I believe, to get to, it's 1,500 or 1,200 feet anyway.
Are the abutters given any written notification prior to blasting occurring?
Yes, they are. That's in the blasting regulation.
How is this operation different from the operation further down that that the gentleman has further down on Middleton Road? Mr. King's Highway.
This is on a level site where that one is sloping. That when you drive into it and you're always on the side of a hill, it's convenient for him to close that up now before he keeps disturbing it. This has a better location. It's a rocky hill. It's covered with boulders. It's a boulder strewn lot. It's it's attractive to him. When you have a steep lot, the material comes out in a vertical manner. If you're on a flat area of land, you expand this way, but here, you get a lot of material out of a small area.
The proposed operation, does it have more anticipated daily truck traffic or less than the current operation when it was in full operation?
Current operation there was on an as-called basis, so it provided material for the Kingswood High School when that was being built, and then it provided material for the Middleton School. In between those jobs, he provided it for contractors as needed. Other than that, it's been closed unless somebody needs something. So it's not a daily operation. This would be a daily operation like the one he operates in Alton.
Could you elaborate on the fence surrounding this site? How high it is, again, confirm how far it is from the edge of the property line?
Okay, there's a chain link fence as a safety, you got the point, okay. It goes around the upper edge. Okay. Around the upper edge of, say, that's a horseshoe, it's on the upper portion, that as a safety item, that's 20 feet back from the edge. On the plan, I have how high it is, but I would say 8 feet without going over there, finding it out. I'll find out for you.
Can you please also confirm again, the excavated area shown on the plan is for what time period? I believe you said 8 to 12. Can you please confirm what area would be the 4-year plan and what area approximately would be the future plan?
Yeah, if you look at that horseshoe area, I would say a third of it would be for the 4 years, and then the other third would get you out to 12 years, where you'd come back to the planning board and be re-permitted in 4 years. I did that, I feel that I wanted to show the planning board what we're doing. I didn't know at that time that there'd be so much adversity to this, but I wouldn't show a small area anyway. I don't think that's right. I don't think they expect that. So I have a big area there that I don't mean to scare anybody off, but that's the overall scope of this.
At the close of the pit, I know on the plans, it is, on the reclamation plans, it says loam and seed. Could you, I know that's in the future, but could you elaborate on that a little bit, depth of loam plan, the types of seeding to go on there after?
Yeah, I have those notes on some of the other plans there, but what would be left, you have the excavation walls, which are somewhat vertical, 1-to-1. And in the bottom of the pit is graded to drain water when it's done, to clean up all the leftover ledge particles and so forth, to grade it, to slope, to drain towards the infiltration basin, and to establish vegetation, which is grass, and I have that on that plan. Thickness of loam, grass seeding, and so forth, but I can't tell you here, unless you'd like me to go over there here.
I just didn't see it on the plan, it just said loam and seed, so I...
Okay, yeah, yeah. That would be a planning board item.
Just for my own clarification, that is the total that's going to be excavated in that, on that site, over its lifetime, or?
I don't really know that. I could 20 or 30 years from now, maybe it would go beyond there, maybe it wouldn't. That's up to the planning board, it's up to Keith Babb. There's limitations on the site as to how deep you can go and how you can operate there on the side of the hill. So that's an unknown. Even if we wanted to say we were going to go further, but we're not going over to the golf course. On that plan, there's a divide of the watershed where water sheds from one side of the hill to the other. We're on the side where it goes over to Beaver Pond, which ends up in Beaver Brook, which ends up into Lake Winnipesaukee, over by Brook and Bridle estate there. And so we don't go to the top of the hill, and we don't get into the other side of the hill, the watershed area at all. We're not going to get that high. So I can't really answer that, but I know we're not going that far. Well, he's not going, it's not me, it's him.
Is, what is in place? And this is, you're going to only see the lower areas. Are you going to have a vertical wall in the lake after?
Yes,
That's going to remain, right?
yes. Unless the planning board comes up with a greater restoration plan than I have. But there would be money set aside to do that, and that's the intent of gravel pit regulations, is to restore it, not leaving holes on the landscape that never get repaired, so that's a big deal.
Is the other pit that he has now over there, is that going to be closed, or is he going to keep permitting that stuff?
It's going to be closed down. You'd like to close that down. If he could get approval for this, that would be closed right afterwards. And restore that to a horse farm or a residential lot.
You talk some about how you're going to mitigate the dust.
Yeah, that's why we installed I have a well to be installed on the plan. That's to provide water that could be sprayed on the conveyor system and also along the road to keep dust down.
Do you have any way of measuring the amount of dust that will generate?
No, he could answer that, but that's not very much. If you have a dusty road, you could generate dust. This road is paved also to eliminate the dust. That's one of the things on the plan, is to eliminate dust by paving the road. So the intent is not to, yes, the entrance is to be paved. And the intent is not to have dust and
The experience has been that it does generate a lot of dust, not just trucks, but when the gravel's on the front loader into the truck.
yeah.
My other question is, do you have plans for any additional security?
Well, there's 3 entrances to the property. The other 2 would be gated. This would be the entrance to the permit that's on the plan there. That would be important to him to be closed at night and so forth. There's tires that have been dropped off on the other end of the property. So those entrances would be closed. There used to be a farmhouse there. So this would be more secure than it is if now security matters, but the entrance to the pit would be gated.
Okay, and what about lights or alarm system? Pits tend to be a magnet that causes fire jumps.
Well, what's going to be in the pit is stockpiles. So you have several different piles in there of different size, depends how they're being used up. There's no,
Stockpile any materials from his first pit onto this pit?
he'd like to bring material from the pit he owns in Ossipee down here to mix with the stone. And it creates a product that a lot of contractors like for roads. It really packs well. So he would bring in and generate a pile of gravel, which he would use and then sell to customers. So this is a retail operation where it's open to the public and that's it. And he has a person in there that would be there all day to fill up a truck, and that's how he operates that, and that's all it is.
It sounds more like a contractor's yard
No.
than a retail operation.
No, it would be a front-end loader in the site with an operator basically by himself for 8 months of the year. There's no other equipment around. It would just be that. That's how the pit in Alton is operated. Other pits are operated like that. It's very simple. He has. Yeah, yeah. He has equipment, yeah, in other places. He doesn't store equipment here. There's no need for that. The truck that would bring gravel from Ossipee just brings it and then leaves. It's not going to be there.
But where does the mixing take place from the materials?
On site, the front-end loader would do that. The berm, there's a berm on there. I might not explain that very well. That's a berm similar to like building a wall in there. It's 10 feet high. The idea is to screen that from the road and also as a noise shield to cut down on noise. So it's designed to be out of the way and out of sight as much as you can be. And I've located the entrance away from the house across the street and downhill, so I don't think that will bother them. I tried to consider everybody around there, and I've been on the site and I see how it is in the neighborhood and visualize how this would operate, and I see that this fits in the neighborhood, and I think this is fine.
Well, you think you're wrong.
Next to your house.
I just would like to ask if I could, yeah, yes, just check. Could I see the letter from the real estate agent?
Yeah.
Well, that letter is being looked at. I have a question in regards to the roads. New Durham posts its roads in the spring in order to prevent damage. How are you going to ensure that trucks leaving your operation are not going to be exceeding the load limit that's been set by either New Durham or Wolfboro?
Well, the truck drivers honor that anyway. When the signs are posted, they know that they can't drive on those roads, and they don't unless they talk to the road agent. And then when the signs are taken off, then they go ahead. And if they don't comply with that, there's police procedures for that, and that's how that works. There's nothing special for this. That's standard in the industry.
And you might have mentioned this, but could you speak again to lighting that would be at the site, that would be used primarily, I guess, would be October, November, until daylight saving time goes back and forth? And will it be visible from the street?
There isn't any lighting there. When it gets dark, it would close down. It's an outdoor environment. That's how it works. If a truck came in the dark and wanted to be loaded, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't happen. There wouldn't be any street light in there to light up the place. It's not on my plan. That could come up at the planning board hearing. Maybe we could add a light, but I don't see any need for that. Though there aren't lights at other operations that I know of.
Are there any other questions?
Can you elaborate more on what the berm will be constructed of?
Yeah, that'll be an earthen berm, 5 feet at the top, 2 to 1 at the base. I don't know what the width would be, 30 feet maybe. At the base, on the site, there's material that was left in a similar berm shape on the right-hand side of that property. When Middleton Road was constructed, there was material placed on that lot and left there, and it'd be similar to that.
And seeded stone?
Yes, no, it'd be fill material, dirt, with a slope 2-to-1 and then seeded with grass seed and loam.
The final ledge base, you mentioned probably 1-to-1 ledge base. Is that just gonna be left as it is? Is there gonna be any sort of stabilization on it?
No, that'll be left as is, that's solid. Or it'll be left solid if there are any loose ledge there, they would be knocked off and so forth. So it'll be left in a stable manner.
And the smaller stormwater infiltration basin that you show on the right-hand side there, that looks like it's sort of dug out into a basin. Is there more detail about that? Is that just a small area that's grabbing stormwater from?
That was in the area of the stockpile area that I removed. I left that on the plan to pick up rainwater that lands on that level area, which was the farmhouse. And instead of just letting it run over the property into the road area and then into the stream, into the Shaw's Pond, I thought it would be best to leave it there. So it's designed to pick up the runoff off that area of land. It's a good practice to do that.
The total impact area, not just areas to be excavated, but including your driveway berms, whatever is going to be touched from one of the
I can't tell you off the top of my head now. I haven't calculated that I know of.
We would go for an OT.
We're going to submit plans for an alteration of terrain permit. That's what you're talking about? Yes. Yeah, all that is calculated, all stormwater, erosion control, anything to do with development of land is in the alteration of terrain permit. It's extensive, covers everything. That'll all be calculated and tabulated along with other environmental impacts for endangered species and wildlife, and all that will be documented on that permit. Oh, yes, yeah, that's a state requirement. We have to do that. I'm glad to do that.
Mr. Barney, I just have a question primarily on your application, because at some point this board is going to be deliberating. You've listed this, you're seeking special exception for commercial use, which in the zoning ordinance is defined as a business that has direct individual consumer contact for sales or service as its principal concern, and you haven't, or your client hasn't applied for a special exception of an industrial use, which includes a business that processes raw materials. Don't you think this is more of an industrial use than a commercial use?
It could be. I read that as you have a manufacturing plant where plastic is brought in on a truck and it goes into the manufacturing facility and comes out as a tennis racket, and that's the raw material. I don't equate that to the ledge and natural material on the site. That's how I would. I don't think it is an industrial use. I think that it goes to excavation rules, which are delineated in the zoning ordinance and covered that way.
Questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Barney.
Thank you.
I would ask if there are any officials from the town of New Durham first who wish to speak to this. Please come up and identify yourself, please.
My name is David Swenson, and I currently chair the New Durham Board of Selectmen. However, I must put a caveat to that in that my questions and comments are not in any way reflective of a consensus or any discussion by the board. It is only derived from the presentation that occurs tonight, and is more from a resident perhaps than from any board position, but in full disclosure mode here, I do chair the Board of Selectmen. Having said that, there are three basic questions that I have, which I think both the applicant and the Zoning Board of Adjustment needs to think about in some way. The first one was already touched on by Stephanie as a member of the ZBA, and that specific blasting noise levels and impact was somewhat lacking in the presentation. I find that somewhat problematic, and I think that is a hole, if you will, in terms of the amount of information that may be needed. By the way, these are probably in order, reverse order of importance in terms of my questions. The second point that I would have is that I understand the letter, and while I haven't seen it, I understand that the letter from a real estate agent was supplied relative to a potential real estate impact. However, I would suggest to the ZBA and the applicant that it may be worthwhile for the town assessor and perhaps another neutral party to review the potential property value impact of both the golf course and the residential properties that abut the proposed 12-year use, if not beyond the 12-year use. So I do suggest that you may want to think about having that before you come to any conclusions. And also, as I said, the applicant may want to think about how that should be addressed. And thirdly, perhaps most importantly from my point of view, is that I didn't catch, although Attorney Sager did touch to a certain degree on it, but I didn't catch yet how this commercial and or industrial, but it is being applied as a commercial, how this commercial / industrial activity falls within the current zoning of this being a residential, agricultural, recreational area. And perhaps that is, for me, the most difficult decision that the ZBA may have to come to address in terms of how they come to a conclusion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any official from the town of Middleton?
Good evening. I'm John Hotchkiss, Vice Chairman, Board of Selectmen, Town of Middleton. I have 2 or 3 issues to present, please. First, the question of posting of the roads. The presentation suggested that the roads would be open in April. They are not open in April in Middleton. They are still posted. After talking to our road agent, I would not be surprised if they were posted till the end of April. The current load limit in Middleton is either 8-ton or 6-ton. I believe triaxle trucks, empty, could not travel those roads when posted. Second issue deals with a number of trips. I've attended several of these meetings. I keep hearing 70 to 100 trips. Tonight I hear 10 to 15. But that sounds like just the material that's being brought out. During the presentation, I heard about at least 1 load, maybe more, coming from Ossipee daily. And if it is 15 trips times 2, because the trucks have to come back, that's 30. Last question or item to talk about is how the trucks get out of that site. As near as I can tell, there are 3 ways of getting out of that road. First is down Camp Lions Club Prideway, backside of Merry Meeting. I rather doubt that any truck is going to go through there. Second way is to leave New Durham and go through Wolfboro. Sounds good until you start to look at the traffic in Wolfboro, at least through the summer and fall, maybe even longer. That leaves third choice, Middleton. In Middleton, we are justifiably proud of our roads. A small town, we spend a lot of money maintaining our roads. I am concerned that these large trucks would have a very adverse impact on the quality of our roads that we work so hard to maintain. Thank you.
I do have another government official here, but just before you speak, I do have a question for our last speaker. When one goes down Kings Highway in New Durham to Middleton Highway in Middleton, where would a truck go from that point? Would it continue into Farmington, or would it go over through Union to get to Route 16?
Depends where the truck is trying to get to. You can come down Kings Highway, go past the Middleton Elementary School, where it becomes Route 153 at Middleton Building. At that point, you could turn left on 153, go down to the bottom of Middleton Hill in Union, make a short turn and get on Route 16. Or you could continue straight past Middleton Building, down into Farmington on Route 153. At that point, make a turn probably in the center of town to turn and go up Central and then over to Route 11. Either way, you have to go through Middleton. I suppose you could try Ridge Road, which is the road right at the four corners of Middleton, but right now that's posted at 6 ton. I would certainly not want big triaxle trucks going over that. Right? Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of the speaker?
Kathy Orlowitz, town historian. My question is regarding the private family cemetery, the old burial ground that's on the property. Last plans that I had looked at, the setback was not correct, and I'm wondering if that has been corrected, and if it is at the 75 feet that is required by the town of New Durham. Our regulations are stricter than the state of New Hampshire regarding the area surrounding the old graveyard as not being able to be disturbed. Disturbed means no digging.
Ms. Connie, could you answer that question, please?
On the revised plans, there's a 75-foot radius that goes right around that cemetery. And I believe that the 75 feet says no building, but we still put 75 feet around it not to be disturbed.
Anyone else from the Durham or Middleton? There are town official from Wolfboro here. Who is speaking for the town? Is this a dual presentation?
Yes, it will be.
My name is Linda Murray, and I'm a select woman in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, and I'd like to present to the board a bunch of letters that we emailed to you on Monday. Not sure whether everybody received it, and I have a hard copy for you.
My name is Dave Senecal. I'm also a selectman in Wolfboro. During the presentation tonight, I believe this is a special exception presentation. I heard an awful lot about planning board issues. Special exception has 9 particular points that they have to meet a special exception. I didn't hear any of those tonight. So I'm quite concerned that the presentation that was made tonight was for a planning board, not for a zoning board. Also, under 155E, there are some points that you may or may not be aware of. One is, excavation will not cause diminishing area property value or unreasonable change in the character of the neighborhood. That's A. B is the excavation will not unreasonably accelerate the deterioration of highways or create safety hazards, the use thereof. C, the excavation will not create a nuisance or create health or safety hazards. And D, the excavation complies with such other special exception criteria, which is part of your responsibilities, as may be set out in applicable local ordinances. So there are quite a few things in 155E, which I think you are aware of, but those in particular, and again, I just wish to say that I didn't hear the applicant address any of the 9 criteria according to 1, 2, 3, 4, which is usually the way special exceptions or variances, which have only 5 points. So I did not hear anything tonight that would lead me to believe that a special exception should be granted. Linda, you want to, there's a couple of things you had.
in that packet that I just handed out, and I want to say the same thing that Attorney Sager said. The town is questioning the application coming in under a commercial use. We believe it should come under an industrial use. The principal product is the excavation of wholesale raw material. And we all know the contractors are going to come and get that raw material, and they're going to sell it to the person they're building the driveway or doing whatever work they're doing for somebody. And therefore, we believe that this special exception should be denied because it came under the wrong section of your zoning ordinance.
Any of the board members have questions for the borough officials? Or for our own official, for Ms. Horowitz? Next, I'll invite people who are abutters, and that includes the 12 abutters that were notified officially by the town of New Durham. As occurred, the town of Middleton and the town of Wolfboro were also notified of this hearing, obviously by their attendance. We also notified Stratford Regional Planning Commission and Lakes Region Regional Planning Commission. Any abutters who would like to speak? The gentleman?
Nope,
Who
sorry.
would stand up first with the blue polo shirt?
I'll yield. I'll yield. I'll yield, please. I'll yield it to someone else.
Would somebody like to go first? Come on down.
My name is Jason Reimers. I am an attorney with BCM Environmental and Land Law in Concord, and I represent the Lake Winnipesaukee Golf Club, which is an abutter to this proposed gravel pit property. I'm going to say a few words, more than a few, but and then Tracy Tarr of GZA Environmental will say a few words, and David Przbilski, who is the general manager of the club, has a few things to say. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna do.
Could you also please spell David's last name? We do want to have the record correct.
Okay, he'll spell it when he comes up, he said. I've got a phonetic spelling on my paper. There's much more to the zoning analysis than Mr. Varney alluded to. First of all, a gravel pit is not permitted by right in the residential recreation agricultural district. And a special exception cannot be granted for this proposed use. A variance is required. Under Article 8A, a special exception for a commercial or industrial use is only available in areas designated most suitable or moderately suitable for urban growth. And we looked at that map that's in the town office. The applicant has not met its burden to show that the property is in one of those areas. The application does not include or make reference to a map showing that this property is in an area designated most suitable or moderately suitable for urban growth. The applicant has not superimposed his lot lines on the map to prove it. He's not demonstrated that this property is eligible at all for a special exception consideration under Article 7 as being in a most suitable or moderately suitable area. On this ground alone, the board should deny the application because it would not support the granting of a special exception. The land use suitability map that we saw on the slide does not include lot lines or the location of this property. It appears, I looked at it earlier along with another attorney that you will hear from later, and it appears that the frontage of this applicant's properties are along the road are colored red, which would be an area most suitable for urban growth, but that the vast majority of the property, including the location of the gravel pit, are colored yellow, which on that map is an area least suitable for urban development. Steep slopes are usually not suitable for development And the topography and the coloring on the map bear this out, because the areas labeled as most suitable for urban growth tend to be the flatter areas. And that's what the map shows. It's clear from the language in the zoning ordinance and the language on the map that there are 3 categories of suitability for development: least suitable, moderate, and most. There's a legend on the map that can be read, I think, in a confusing way, or it can be read very straightforward. Yellow is least suitable. That's where the blasting will occur. That's where the gravel pit will be. Orange is moderately suitable. There's no orange involved here. And red is most suitable, but for this property, the red is only along the road. Under Article 7, a special exception cannot be approved to allow a commercial or industrial area colored yellow on that map, which is where this gravel pit would be. The board just doesn't have the authority to grant a special exception in this area. This should be the end of the board's consideration, and the board should deny the application. The applicant would need to seek a variance if they want a gravel pit on this property. Relatedly, we've asked the town on multiple occasions whether an administrative decision has been made by a town officer that a special exception is the proper vehicle. We haven't received an answer to that yet. If the board does consider the special exception criteria, which I don't think the board should, the board must still deny the application because a gravel pit is an industrial use. It's not a commercial use. The application describes the gravel pit, as you've heard, as a commercial use. To figure out what a commercial use and an industrial use are, you go to the definitions, as we've started to talk about tonight. And a commercial use is a business that has direct individual consumer contact for sales or service as its principal concern. An industrial use is a business that processes raw materials, warehouses products, fabricates products from component parts, services industrial businesses, or wholesales products as its principal concern. The application does not satisfy the definition of commercial use. I understand from the presentation tonight that there will be some sales on site, but the plan doesn't show a sales or service facility, nor does the application mention one. No customer parking spots are shown. And even with 10 to 15 customers, and I'm not sure exactly whether those are industrial customers or more like a residential customer, but even with those coming, that doesn't turn this into the principal use being a commercial use. The proposed gravel pit just does not fit within the definition of commercial, because it's got the language about the principal use. Sheet 1 of the plan states that the plan is to operate a ledge excavation to produce crushed stone and to stockpile sand, gravel, and loam for sale. That meets the definition of industrial use. It processes raw materials, it warehouses products, and it would serve industrial businesses. And based on what I've heard tonight, I think it potentially satisfies another part of the industrial use definition, which is fabricates products from component parts. With material coming in from Ossipee, those two and the on-site crushed stone are being put together to create a new product. I think that's another reason why it's an industrial use. Because a special exception for an industrial use has not been asked for, the board should deny the application on that ground. But if the board decides to evaluate the application as a proposed industrial use, which would be an error, the board must deny the application nevertheless, because the application does not satisfy the additional requirements for granting a special exception for an industrial use. So there's certain requirements in the special exception section of the ordinance that just apply to industrial uses. And that's why it makes a difference whether, it's not just an administrative box checking of whether this is commercial or industrial, there's actually real consequences to that. So Article 7A to B is part of the special exception section, and it prohibits industrial uses, quote, in areas of existing major residential recreational use. And one of the town officials just mentioned this. My client, the golf club, operates a major recreational use in the immediate area of the proposed gravel pit. The property's abut. On every other side of the proposed gravel pit are residential areas. Mr. Varney used the word tonight, neighborhood, to describe the area. The Stratford Regional Planning Commission issued a letter dated January 13th. They also pointed out that the gravel pit would be surrounded by existing recreational and residential uses. So an industrial use is specifically prohibited in this area. That portion of the zoning ordinance, I presume, is to protect existing recreational and residential uses from the noise, traffic, air pollution, and vibrations attendant to a gravel pit and other similar industrial activities. As the Planning Commission stated, the application severely lacks details about the impacts of the proposed use on its neighbors. And because Article 7 of the zoning ordinance does not authorize the board to issue a special exception for an industrial use in an area of existing major recreational residential use, the board must deny the application on this ground. Again, the only way to have a gravel pit on this property is to get a variance. Even if the board considers the application under the special exception criteria, the application does not contain sufficient information to support a finding that the applicant has carried his legal burden to satisfy the special exception criteria. Part B of the special exception section has requirements applicable to all commercial and industrial special exception applications. And it's the applicant's burden to prove or to provide sufficient information upon which the board can make a ruling that, or a finding of approval that these requirements have been met. The first requirement that applies here is that no business, commercial, industrial, or other use shall be permitted which could cause any undue hazard to health, safety, or diminish the property value of other landowners, or which is offensive to the public because of vibration, excess traffic, unsanitary condition, noxious odor, smoke, or similar reason. The application, notwithstanding what you've seen tonight, and we haven't seen those documents, they've just been shown on a screen. The application for the special exception should address this stuff, but it includes no evidence showing that there would be no hazard to health or safety and no diminishment of property values of the surrounding areas. The letter from the realtor, I haven't seen it. I believe the board just saw it tonight. The board shouldn't consider that. It should have been part of the application, but even if the board considers it, consider what it is. It's a letter from a realtor. From time to time in cases, I hire, and so do people on the other side of a case, hire an expert to determine these things, and those people are almost always certain appraisers who follow certain methodologies. I'm not saying that Mr. Starr is not a qualified expert, but I don't know that he is. My mother is a realtor, a fantastic realtor, but she's not qualified to give testimony on the diminution of property values. The plan and the application do not state, for example, the volume of excavated material, traffic information. We heard a little tonight, but like the volume of excavated material, I'm not really clear on what the answer is. And the plan and the application do not state the estimated air, noise, or water pollution. Now, Mr. Varney mentioned traffic and noise and vibration studies, but he has not provided those with his application, even though they're relevant to the special exception criteria. And we've not been able to review those and have potentially hire our own experts to review them or do their own study to refute them. Or maybe we'd agree with them, but you just don't know if we can't see those. The board shouldn't consider those. It wasn't part of the application. And also, with all due respect, I don't know if Mr. Varney is an expert qualified to do traffic studies, noise studies, and or vibration studies. Again, there are people who specialize in each of these. I'm assuming, vibration, I've never really been involved with that, but traffic studies, noise studies, these are specific fields with specific methodologies. So as far as those studies go, we don't know the exact methodologies he's used, and we haven't been able to test whether those are sound. So the board shouldn't consider them. And the plan does not mention much about how they're going to manage pollution. For example, on sheet 4 of the plan for dust control, it states, pit operator is to implement dust control measures as needed to prevent airborne dust particles from leaving the site. And that I don't call a plan. That sounds like a plan to maybe make a plan. The Planning Commission also pointed out many of these shortcomings, including no discussion of emergency access or information on the impact to neighboring property values. Another requirement in the zoning ordinance for all commercial and special exception applications is that there be a sufficient off-street parking for patrons and employees. The site plan does mention parking, but it's not clear to me how many spaces there are and whether that is adequate. Even if the board considers whether the application satisfies these criteria, the only result is that the application be denied for failing to satisfy the requirements of Article 7B. Another reason why under the zoning ordinance, why this application cannot be approved is Article 11, the steep slope conservation overlay district. The application states that 3/4 of the property has slopes over 15%, but the plan doesn't delineate these areas. The plan also does not show what the slopes are, even though Article 11 has different standards for different slopes. There's different standards for 15 to 24.99%, and it slopes 25 to 29.99%, and so on. According to Table 7B in the steep slopes article, the only uses allowed in 15 to, let's say, 25% slopes are those activities permitted in the underlying district. But as I mentioned in the outset, the permitted uses in the residential, recreation, agricultural district do not include gravel pits. So they're not allowed, again, it's kind of redundant perhaps, but they're not allowed under Table 7B of the steep slopes article. This is perfectly consistent with the property being shown in yellow on the map that we saw as least suitable for urban development. Steep slopes are not most suited for urban development. That's why you have a steep slopes conservation overlay district. Article 11 essentially puts into words the protections shown on the land use suitability map. Because even the applicant readily concedes that 3/4 of this property has steep slopes. If 3/4 of this property has steep slopes, it is impossible for that lot, for those properties, to be within that thin red area between the road and the end of the red before the yellow begins, and yellow being least suitable. That's impossible. So because a gravel pit is not permitted on a property in the residential, recreational, agricultural district with steep slopes, again, the board must deny this application. Then there's also RSA 155E, which allows towns to enact excavation regulations, which you have done, the town has done. The statute 155E provides that between the town's regulations and the statute, quote, this is a paraphrase, the provision which imposes the greater restriction is controlled. As I've pointed out, the zoning ordinance already provides numerous grounds on which the board must deny this application. But 155E has many standards that appear to be even stricter than the zoning ordinance. In a letter that we submitted late last week to you, we noted 2 examples. 155E4 prohibits excavation projects that are not permitted by municipal zoning. Here, numerous provisions of the ordinance prohibit this, including the list of permitted uses in the district, the definitions of industrial use, and the steep slope conservation overlay district, to name a few. Also, 155E4 also states that a town cannot approve an application until all state permits are obtained. And I'm not aware of the applicant having obtained state permits, as none are included with the application. Thus, under RSA 155E, the board should not approve this application. So just to recap the reasons why the board must deny this application. Number one, a gravel pit is an industrial use that is not permitted as of right in this district. Number two, no special exception is even available because the applicant has not proven the properties to be in areas moderately or most suitable for urban development. Three, it's not allowed by a special exception because the gravel pit would be in an area least suitable for urban development. Four, the application for a commercial use cannot be approved because a gravel pit is an industrial use. Five, even if the board considers the application as proposing an industrial use, a special exception cannot be given in this area of existing major recreational/residential use. Six, even if the board considers the special exception criteria, the board should deny the application because the applicant has not provided information under Article 7B that could support the board's approval, had it been part of the application. The board, number 7, the board cannot approve an industrial use because of the Steep Slopes Conservation District. And finally, this application cannot be approved under RSA 155. Finally, the applicant will also need design review, site plan approval, excavation permit, conditional use permit under the Steep Slopes article. But before the applicant can seek these approvals, they need a variance. And that's what they should apply for if they want to do this project. The board must deny this application because of the numerous provisions of the zoning ordinance that make clear that a special exception is an inappropriate way to go about getting a gravel pit on this property. Each of those provisions that I discussed are an independent basis to deny this application. If the board is inclined to approve this application, though, I do make 2 requests. First, that you continue the hearing and not make a decision tonight. Because of the information provided, the golf club would like enough time to review those and have them reviewed potentially by other experts. This is the first time we've heard about much of this tonight, and we haven't even seen the documents. We've just seen them up there. Second, we would want Tracy Tarr of GZA Environmental to do a site walk of the property, which I believe the board can order. I think that's it. You know, there was the question that one board member had about, is this section of excavated area going to be it? And I quickly looked at the plan, and I saw that the original plan had said that there would be future excavation in undelineated areas around it. And the current plan has deleted that. I don't know what to make of it. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you very much for your patience. And here's Tracy.
First, does the board, any board member have questions for the speaker?
Thank you. Tracy Tarr of GZA Environmental.
Thank you very much. I'm a wetland scientist, wildlife biologist, and certified erosion control specialist with GZA. We did review the application on behalf of the adjacent golf course. Just a few comments to add to what Attorney Reimers had to say. Typically, when you're evaluating blasting impacts, there's 2 items that you would look at, and this is commonly done in DOT studies of blasting impacts, commonly requested by DES. You would want to look at a hydrologic geotechnical evaluation. That would include a subsurface investigation and would include well sampling. We heard about potential well sampling with this project, but we didn't hear what they would test about, which is very important to understand impacts. Are they testing for nitrates, which is commonly done? And then depending on what blasting materials are used, you may also want to sample for other parameters like metals, and that's really important to understand impacts. And you would certainly want that reviewed by an independent expert to understand those impacts. Then there was the potential suggestion that the project has no potential impacts on environmental resources. We saw some town-wide maps. What we didn't hear about, though, was that the site is in a potential location for small world pogonia. That's a federally and state threatened plant, known from the area, appears on U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service maps as potentially in the area, and it should be assessed as part of planning board review.
I mention that specifically because May and June is the ideal time to assess for that federally threatened plant, so we could potentially miss the window if that wasn't requested soon. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
The threatened plant?
Yes, and I should mention, this is in the letter that was submitted to the board from GZA dated April 7th, and it's Small World Pogonia. It's a rare orchid that's known from this area.
Questions for Ms. Collins? Okay. And please spell your last name.
I'd be honored to. Good evening. My name is David Przbilski. P as in Paul, R, Z as in zebra, Y, B as in boy, Y, L, S as in Sam, K, I. I've done that once or twice. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Needless to say, I'm coming to you as the general manager for Lake Winnipesaukee Golf Club, and we are in opposition to the proposed project today. I also submitted a letter of objection late last week. I will read a few of those points this evening. Lake Winnipesaukee Golf Club, known as LWGC, is a golf course abutting both lots of the project, which are in close proximity to our 14th and 15th golf holes. LWGC is located in a pristine setting that is peaceful, beautiful, where wildlife thrives within its forests and wetlands. And I do disagree with a portion of that presentation about the wildlife, where we have... This list is not meant to be all-inclusive. Deer, moose, bear, owls, eagles, fisher cats, bobcats, fox. Again, not an all-inclusive list of animals that we frequently see on our property. So to say that wildlife is not on the course is not accurate. LWGC has worked very hard, as well as made a significant financial investment into the property to create the atmosphere and greatly improve the property from what it was. The noise and disruption that this will cause will completely change what LWGC has become and is known for. The blasting, rock crushing, slamming of truck beds, the use of heavy machinery, and the dust plumes created on a daily basis will greatly disrupt our business and surrounding community in many ways. We strongly object to the application and plan for multiple reasons. The financial impact on LWGC will be enormous. There has been millions of dollars invested in this property, and it will be incredibly hard, if not impossible, to conduct business with the massive amounts of noise that this will cause. Members of our club will resign, potential members will not consider us, outings and events will look elsewhere. Our club will not be the same due to this proposed project, and our reputation will be scarred. This will cause enormous financial strain on the club, with the loss of revenue for the business that we have worked very hard at building. The loss of business will cause other strains on the community, such as the availability of jobs and funds spent in the local communities. We employ 50 people peak season, and should the character of the area change, causing the club to fail due to the impact of this project, those jobs are gone. In conjunction, LWGC supports many local businesses, and should the club fail or business be diminished, so will the available funds going back into the community in the form of purchasing services and goods. LWGC will see a dust plume rising from the site that will be seen from our clubhouse, where our members dine and entertain and where we host private parties and outdoor events. Again, I disagree with the presentation of the site view. Our clubhouse sits on top of our property, and both of our dining rooms, along with our patio, will view.
You can see it 100%.
Goes.
You can see my barn right plain as day from the clubhouse. So there's no way you wouldn't see it.
I'm speaking. Our property and our clubhouse will overlook the dust plumes that will rise from this project. The beautiful views that LWGC is known for will be ruined our dining business will drop, and the cost of keeping our facility clean will drastically increase. This proposed project will come and go, but the community will have to endure the pain of this project during the operation and deal with the consequences once the project leaves. That's not fair to the community who is here every day paying its taxes and helping make this community a great place to live and raise a family. The same goes for Lake Winnipesaukee Golf Club. We have greatly improved this property from what it was, and we have entered into this venture to be here for a long time. We are the highest paying taxpayer in New Durham. We pay our taxes on time and require little to no services from the town. We too will have to endure the pain this project will cause and feel its effects once it's gone should the project be approved. There are people who moved here because of what LWGC has become. That's not fair to us or the residents that have chosen to make this community home. The proposal of 70 trucks per day will cause safety issues and enormous wear and tear on the state and local roads. The safety issue not only affects the families and residents in the surrounding area, but it will be a safety hazard for our staff, our members, their families, and guests having to maneuver the winding roads along with 70 heavy-duty trucks. Placing an operation in our community and neighborhood will have a large negative impact on the surrounding property values, causing the residents and business to lose value, subsequently greatly reducing the town's tax revenue. We ask that the zoning board have the best interests of its residents and current business in mind and not approve this project. Please understand the irreparable amount of damage a project such as this would cause our business, the community, and the residents that surround it. Please deny this project for the reasons we have stated. Thank you very much for your time.
Does the board have any questions for this individual? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other abutters that would wish to ask this one? Come up and identify yourself.
My name is Kurt DeVilder. I'm an attorney in Wolfboro. I represent multiple abutters, including the Hadfields and the Buells. I am going to focus my presentation with regard to my clients strictly on a few acute legal issues. I'm going to leave, they have some factual presentation that they're going to make on their own.
Do you identify who you are representing again?
The Hatfields and the Buells.
What map and lot are the Hatfields at?
They're in Wolfboro.
Kendall. I'm looking under Kendall too.
It's listed under Kendall. They are map 278, lot 41 in Wolfboro. Heidi and Dale Hadfield. It's Heidi Kendall Hadfield. If I may approach the board, I have a summary letter I'd like to submit, which contains some photographs, and I also have a copy of the excavation plan for Green Oak Realty Development LLC that I'm going to be referencing during my presentation. May I? Okay.
Anyone who is giving the board handouts, if you could also make sure that our land use assistant receives a handout for the official files. She is sitting over there at the door where you all signed in.
Yes.
Page 1, bottom paragraph, last sentence. All citations herein refer to the Ossipee zoning ordinances.
That's a typographical error, of course. It's the New Durham zoning ordinance. May I proceed? I'll delineate as I go through.
Yeah.
So, I am the attorney that conferred with Jason earlier today. We are approaching this from similar and different angles. I'm going to do my best not to repeat the information that he's already provided to the board in the interest of expediency. But, so, to my first point, we're living in a time where there's a term called alternative facts that's being bandied about in the media, and unfortunately, I think that we just heard a presentation that is rife with alternative facts that are unsupported by any actual data, any hard data. And as Jason pointed out, that data has not been provided to anybody in advance of this presentation or even at the presentation. I don't believe that the board even has a copy of the PowerPoint presentation at this point. So my clients are going to be addressing things such as decibel levels, et cetera. But when a presentation begins with "don't shoot the messenger" and is unsupported by facts, that's very concerning about the veracity of the factual assertions contained in the presentation. The fact of the matter is that what we have here is a residential neighborhood. It's as residential a neighborhood as any other in the town of New Durham. And on three sides of this property are those single-family residences that are long established. And on the fourth side is a recreational facility in the form of a golf course that's been there for probably the better part of 3 decades, if not longer. The first issue I want to address is that the application improperly seeks a special exception for commercial use as opposed to for industrial use. So what we have here in actuality is a twofold enterprise. We have a quarry and then we have a pit. And we've sort of brushed over the whole blasting part and excavation part to get ourselves here. But in reality, that's what's going to have to happen because we have a steep sloped lot that's going to have to be excavated so that the pit operation can be operated there. In order to excavate it, it's going to require blasting through what was termed dynamite. And that's just simply going to have to happen. So, and then what happens is an operation that does not meet the definition of commercial use. So what's going to be happening here is that commercial vendors, not individual customers, are going to be coming to the property. 10 to 15 was the number given tonight. This operation is not of the ilk of, say, a grocery store, which is open to the public. The commercial use is defined by the zoning ordinance. Section 3 is a business that has direct individual consumer contact for sales or service as its principal concern. That's not the case here. What we have is a wholesale operation dealing with contractors. Contractors was actually the term that was utilized in the slides and in the presentation, not Joe pickup truck who's going to be doing a weekend project. That's not what's going on here. A Joe pickup truck and his maybe garbage barrel that he wants to fill with aggregate is not going to be loaded by a commercial loader. So individual consumer sales are not a quarry or pit's principal concern. So this is properly categorized as an industrial use, as Jason pointed out, not a commercial use. And industrial use is a business that processes raw materials, warehouses products, fabricates from component parts, services, industrial businesses, or wholesales products as a principal concern. That's exactly what's going on here. It's going to be producing or processing raw earthen materials, which, by the way, these aggregate materials are not mixed with a loader. They're mixed with conveyor belts. Otherwise, you'd have 3 to 5 yards of the loader bucket full of one material and then 3 to 5 yards of the next material on top of that. It wouldn't be a mix. That would be a stack. And so that's not what's going on here. A pit stores material. You can read that as warehouses under the definition of products which sit on site and are sold. It services industrial businesses by selling materials to them, and wholesales products such as aggregate is its principal concern. So as such, the application should be denied. Second, even if a commercial use is the proper special exception, it's not permitted under the zoning ordinance for the subject property. So the Section 7 of the ordinance sets forth permissible uses which may be allowed by special exception through the board after application of public hearing. Table 4 under Section 7 sets forth the uses and conditions which require a special exception. Per that table, those may be granted for commercial use or industrial use in areas designated, quote, most suitable or moderately suitable for urban growth on the land use sustainability map. I have appended to the letter that I provided to the board 3 photographs of the land use sustainability map, which is actually dated 1979, not 1978 as presented. The map is colorful, and as Jason, it was literally colorful, and it is color-coded, and as Jason presented, there are no lot lines set forth on that map, so nor were they in the presentation. So on the map, when I was in the office and took the photographs that you're now looking at, on the second photograph, there's a little green arrow, and what that points to is a faint road that is Kings Highway. I'm not very technical. So, excuse me, so there's a road that is Kings Highway. It goes through what appears to be an orange section from Wolfboro, west to east into New Durham. Above that is a white or yellow section. Above that is a light green section. And this is a relief map, so one can, in looking at this, view the slope. And from in the orange area, there's not a lot of room between where the road is demarked and above it where the map turns from orange or red to yellow. And when we then look at the excavation plan that I provided to the board, if the board would take a look at, it's the third page, it's marked on the bottom right-hand corner, sheet 2 of 5. There's a scale down in the lower right-hand third of that, and it says 1 inch equals 100 feet, which is actually incorrect because that line above it shows that a 1/2 inch equals 100 feet. That being clarified, when one takes a ruler to this plan and measures off the distance from Kings Highway to the berm that is depicted just above the word Kings, it's through a 100-foot no cut. That's a 1/2 inch, so clearly the scale 1 inch equals 100 is incorrect. It's 1 equals 200. That 100-foot setback and then approximately 50 more feet for the berm indicates about 150 feet from the road, where the ledge excavation area is to occur. So that's going to start, the base of it, 150 feet roughly from the road and move up the hillside toward the golf course away from the road. Going back to the photograph of the use map, there is, this whole thing is drawn to scale, and you have a road depicted on here, the boundaries of the roads are depicted on here, and assuming for discussion purposes that the width of that road might be 50 feet, and then extrapolating from that maybe twice that distance is between the northern edge of the roadway and the beginning of the yellow section on the map, none of these proposed excavation, blasting, or pit operation is really going to be happening in that red area. It's all going to be happening in the yellow and really in the green area, because that is clear from the photograph of the map, is the steeply sloped area. So going back to what's allowed, the subject property where everything's going to be happening is going to be not in the red section, but instead in the area above that. Now, I've lost my place, so instead of just continuing to talk, I'm going to look it up here. Hold on a second. All right. So the use map has a land use suitability scale. That's also appended to the document that I provided you as the first photograph. And that purports to define what these colors mean. And the white areas on the use map, which is the area directly above the red, are denoted as minimally suitable for urban suitability. The light green area above that is designated as suitable for resource protection. And that's where everything's going to be happening, in those two areas. So none of the actual excavating or operations depicted on the plan, the excavation plan, fall within the red or orange area designated as most suitable or even moderately suitable, which would be orange, and that's not anywhere in here, for urban growth. Thus, Table 4 does not allow for either commercial or industrial use on the subject property as proposed under the plan. So, now a commercial use may be, is not must, may be cited within an area of slight suitability for urban growth, which might be the white area, arguably. However, that's not a commercial use, but an industrial use. And even assuming for the sake of argument that it's properly termed a commercial use in the white area designating only slight suitability for urban growth must undergo a site plan review, which, and I'm quoting the ordinance, shall prove to the ZBA that the impact of the proposal will be that of a minor commercial use. Minor commercial use is defined as a commercial use, the impact of which is less than or equal to that of a single-family home. Obviously, a pit or quarry certainly does not meet the definition of being equal to or less impactful than a single-family home. So under any reading of this, a commercial use cannot be allowed in the proposed area. And with respect to industrial use, that's permitted only as a special exception in areas most suitable for urban growth, which would be that red area. But as I just described on the use map, the quarry and the pit activities at the subject property will fall not within that area, but within the area designated as minimally suitable for urban growth, white, or suitable for resource protection, which would be the light green section. None of the uses would fall in the most suitable area, therefore the industrial use could not be allowed. Further, under section 7(2)(b)(3), industrial use of land in the town of New Durham will not be allowed in areas of existing major residential or recreational use. As I said earlier, it seems like everybody in this room is fairly familiar with the layout of the town. That area is as major residential an area as really anywhere else in the town. There's a cluster development there. There are residential lots surrounding 3 sides of the property, and the other part of it that it bans is existing major recreational use. I can't think of a more major recreational use than the golf course that has existed there for decades. So, finally, I want to just address public policy here. When the board is making this decision, what the board should be thinking about is the citizens of the town and how they are impacted by the decision that the board makes. And the granting of the special exception, in this case, would have many significant negative consequences, which would dramatically outweigh any possible benefits that would be gained to the neighbors or the town as a whole. So, without belaboring the obvious, traffic, there's going to be a major increase in that. The numbers are all over the place between this presentation and what has previously been submitted, as Jason pointed out. This is only going to increase as the operation grows in size. It's going to strain public resources for road maintenance and repairs, as the gentleman from Middleton pointed out. It's going to place motorists and pedestrians at risk, create a hazard to school children waiting for buses, and create a busy point of ingress and egress where none previously existed on this road. It's going to cause a decline in property values. It's ridiculous to say that putting a pit or quarry in a residential neighborhood is not going to have a negative impact on property values because people know what that is. Well, people do know what that is, and they know they don't want to live next to it, as evidenced by all the people in this room right now. Not only will these property owners be harmed by the diminution in value of what is likely their most significant financial asset, but the tax base of the entire town is going to be harmed when the values of these properties decline. There was a slide that showed 9 possible residences there. And the statement was, oh, well, those would create a drain on the resources of the town. No. What that would do by subdividing the lot in that way, the subject properties in that way, would be to create 9 single-family residences of significantly increased value that would add to the town's coffers by having taxpayers living in those properties, as opposed to this single property, which is going to be blighted. If there is a tax shortfall, as everybody knows, the rate has to go up, and we already have a relatively higher rate in this town than the surrounding communities. There's an environmental impact here, which I think is obvious. Drilling, blasting, and rock crushing produce silica dust, which is an airborne environmental hazard. It can cause harm to people with or without respiratory ailments. There could be contamination of the water table. Saying that we're going to test for it, blast, and then see what happens is not acceptable. What we need to do is prevent the problem from occurring. And then what happens? So the wells are compromised. What is the value of a house where one can't drink the water? We've seen this in Michigan recently. That's a catastrophe, and that should not be allowed to happen here. Also, there's the possibility of structural impact on the surrounding properties, anywhere from things falling off shelves, breaking windows, to breaking foundations. So that is my presentation, and I had a couple of other notes that I came up with during the presentation. And this is not a highway. This is a 30 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour-ish speed area, and it is not in any way, shape, or form a busy road, and it should not be allowed to be turned into such. The person, I mentioned benefits, possible benefits to the town. What are the possible benefits to the town? Well, it's not employment, because there's maybe going to be one person working on the site, and who says that they're going to be a resident of the area? There is only one person that benefits from this project, and he's not even a New Durham resident. His business, is, as per the application, is based out of Chichester. So this gentleman already has a pit that he wants to close. He can continue using that. There's no portion of the ordinance, the zoning ordinance, which requires the granting of a request. The board has to weigh all the factors in light of the language of the ordinance, which I think here clearly militate against the granting of the request. So what I, on behalf of my clients and probably a lot of other people in the room, would request is that this be denied. Thank you.
Does anybody on the board have questions for the speaker? Being that by my watch it's 9:35, my plan is I will hear from the abutters that were legally noticed. I will then entertain a motion to continue the hearing till our next meeting, when the interested public will be allowed to speak, and then we will have rebuttals from all the various people I listed previously. That would allow the board to take up the short case that we have after this. Because there are other abutters that have been legally notified that wish to speak. Share the material, and our land use assistant will get copies for all the board by the end of the week. If you could please introduce yourself and identify your map and lot.
We abut the property directly to the south of property where 395 Kings Highway, where the mules, and we would like to speak. My wife has a full presentation here for you. I would like to mention a little something about property values, what we have at the time. You have a property, we built our greenhouse there back in 2010. It's a beautiful, private, quiet property. We like to go out in the morning, have coffee, listen to birds, wildlife. We don't want to wake up to crushing, grinding, blasting, and whatnot. That would definitely devalue our property. So that is a major concern for us.
We are map 205, lot 12, Buell residence. And there, next to, oops, sorry, right here. Next to the proposed project. And can we have, just want to recommend that we have public input put into the record and add the minutes as an attachment? Laura? Great, awesome. Okay, a couple things I want to do is, first of all, introduce myself, and we do have that photo. We appreciated the beauty in the area, as John said, which was why we purchased this lot. We purchased a quiet neighborhood, community that take pride in their area. It's unique and special, and it's wonderful to have a family and a home there. In 2011, we completed our home and have been very happy. We pay exorbitant taxes to be there, on time and in full. But we felt that it was the price to pay to live in such a nice area. Now that's being threatened. Never in all our time did we ever imagine that a bedrock quarry would be plopped in the middle of our neighborhood. Prior to building, we of course checked the zoning. Residential, agricultural, recreational. We were in compliance. We did everything we needed to do, building our dream home in keeping with the zoning laws and building ordinance. We have a great home, and we have a great neighborhood. There are really a lot of aspects that need to be measured as we look at this project, considering everything not limited to safety, traffic, health hazards, water runoff, steep slopes, groundwater. You've heard all this, aquifer issues, air pollution, noise, impact on the neighboring community. A couple of things I want to just kind of show you on this map. There's a berm here, and the elevation of that is 780. I don't know if you can see this. Now the 780 line on this map, so here's the elevation of 780. So 780 elevation will basically come right along in here and goes up, comes up to about here. It's probably hard to see this, but it's kind of a pink line here. It goes along here. Okay? And Mr. Marnie and Mr. Babb had on previous maps here like future sites, which are no longer here, but that's where they were. So I'll just kind of pink them in, but not really. Just imagine if you could. What's interesting about this is that, what is the reason for the berm? Is it to hold down noise? Because once we go over 870 feet, it's not going to stop the noise. It's really not going to stop airflow. Airflow goes up, it goes up all over. It's not going to keep dust down. All right, if it's going to keep off runoff, well, only in two directions, or really one direction. It's all going to come this way, towards us. Mr. Martin, I have a question for you. You have a berm here and a berm here. But what about us? How's there no berm here? Is it because of the cemetery? Is that cemetery going to be subjected to a lot of dust and plume and dirt and everything else? Because there's no protection back there either. There's a bunch of stockpiles here, I see that. But, sorry. I'm trying, I don't mean to be, okay, trying to make it visible to everyone. So, yeah, there's no berm here. And there's no protection for us this way. Not that a berm is going to do a lot of good, but we're going to see it, we're going to hear it, because we're right here. We're living the dream. Okay, so a couple other things. Oops, shut that off. A couple other things on this map. And it's on the next page. So it would be page, I'm sorry, it's on the previous page, 1 of 5. And up here, you will see 3 million cubic yards of material. 300 million cubic yards of material. That's a lot. Now, the Structure Planning Board did a study where they looked at this, and they made a calculation, and it's in their report, that in the initial 4 years, that it's going to take to do this initial part right here, they're going to realize 160,000 cubic yards of material. Now, if that is correct, and maybe Mr. Varney can help me out there with math, because you're an engineer, right? No, I'm not, and I get it. But if I look this correctly, that's over 4 years, right? And then if we take that and divide that by 4, we get down to 1 year, so that's basically 40,000 cubic yards a year, right? If I take 3 million cubic yards, which is what you're 10 million, and divide that by 40,000 cubic yards, which you get per year, I get, based on that, 75 years to complete this. Am I correct? Am I correct? Anybody got a calculator?
Answer.
Do I get a calculator somewhere? Okay, so even if the scale is wrong, like Mr. Fowler said that maybe it's wrong, that 1 inch actually equals 200 feet instead of 100 feet. If we even divide that in half, that's still 34 and a half years. We're way beyond the 12-year period here. This is going to go on a long time. This is a lot of rock. This is a lot of material in our neighborhood. All right. So, moving on. Where'd it go? Here we go, sorry. According to the state of New Hampshire, RSA 155E, Part 4, which you've heard about, talked about by some of the attorneys, under prohibited projects, the regulator shall not grant a permit where C, the excavation will not create any nuisance or create health and safety hazards. Okay, we're going to talk about the health and safety hazards here first. There's no doubt about the excavation of the property will create safety and health hazards. Water quality in our wells and surrounding aquifers will be threatened by chemicals, radon and silica, dust plumes caused by blasting, crushing, and day-to-day exposed earth, not just when it happens, but this is all going to be open. And that is exposed every day. All right? We'll put the entire neighborhood and community in jeopardy. Silica in the air cannot be contained by berms. It can only be sprayed down at the time of crushing, but no amount of water will keep it from being emitted into the air by blasting, nor will the water dries on that crushed stone from being picked up by the winds and carried to neighbors and the community. No amount of water will contain it as it travels down the road, bouncing and banging in large trucks, shifting and grading into a fine dust that is invisible to the eye. Silicosis, like asbestos, is not only harmful, it's carcinogenic. And as was mentioned before, people that have respiratory ailments, like I found out myself on vacation in another hospital, are more likely to be at risk. That makes me worried, really worried. No matter how many gallons of water you pour on it, it will dry. There will be a dust plume. There's no doubt about it. All right. Now, according to noise, according to Mr. Varney, the ambient noise indoors is 40 decibels. Well, if you look on your first handout there, okay, the first one marked 1, on the second page, and I didn't mark it in pink, because I didn't really think I had to, but it says leaves rustling in the breeze, which is woods, which is what we have now, is 20 decibels. Now this comes from, if you check the front, the Center for Hearing, Speech, and Language in Colorado Springs. I didn't get it from just, well, I got it from there. I figured they know what they're doing. If you also look on that page, what in pink, are things about heavy equipment in operation, 95 to 110 decibels. When I looked at Mr. Varney's figures, I realized his figures don't match mine. They're not even close. Bulldozer, 93 to 96 decibels. Earth tamper, 90 to 96. Front end loader, 86 to 94. Backhoe, 84 to 93. Unfortunately, I don't have drilling on there. But on the next one, I think it's the next one. Number 3, sorry. Talks about crushing. 85 decibels. Now, 85 decibels over hours and hours and hours and hours at a time. If you look at number 2, it'll tell you that anything over 85 hours, 85 decibels on the 3rd page should start to be limited, going down from 8 hours to 4 hours to 2 hours to 1. Depending, of course, just how loud that pressure is and where it's sitting. I mean, I don't know where it's going to be. It could be down by the road, it could be up on the hill, I don't know. I don't know where it'll be. All right. According to Webster's dictionary, nuisance is defined as person, thing, or circumstance causing inconvenience or annoyance. I can certainly tell you that this will annoy me. And I can certainly tell you that when I'm not sleeping and I have to get up and be at work by 6 o'clock in the morning, it will be inconvenience when I can't get any sleep because I know here comes that noise. Or if I'm trying to sleep because I have to work later at the club and then I get woken up at 8 o'clock, but I'm not due in until noon. There's no doubt there'll be a lot of noise and loud. How loud is too loud? According to the Center for Hearing, Speech, and Language, anything over 85 decibels can result in hearing loss, and even lower decibels for children. Heavy equipment operations range from 95 to 110 decibels. As operation of heavy equipment is often long in duration, this compounds the problem. According to Elliot Berger, MS for 3M Occupational Health and Safety, which is the number 2 article, anything over 85 decibels requires less than 4 hours, down to 4 minutes, exposure depending upon the equipment being used. Blasting might be minimal, but it is powerful. Crushing, which comes in your number 3 there, will be constant. According to the Mine Safety and Health Association, crushers will operate above the MSHA action limit of 85 decibels. This constant noise at such exorbitant levels will not only be a nuisance, but a health hazard as well. And no berm is going to mitigate it. Under the other prohibited acts, the regulator shall not grant a permit when the excavation will not cause a diminution in the area property value or unreasonably change the character of the neighborhood. This is our neighborhood. You have a picture of it. Right here. All right, this is going to be interesting. This is our property. This is our property. This is our project. This is our neighborhood. But it's missing a few things. So I'm going to put the mic down and I'm going to yell because right here we have the Averys. Then we have the Trites. Then we have the Hatfields. Then the Tumanowskis. packages. You have the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation property here. You have the Bissons who would like to build a home here. You have Mr. Claimsmith who doesn't know what to do. You have the David Halls who just moved in and says, what the heck is going on in my new neighborhood? You have the Buells who are right along a fire. You have Lakeland Kentucky Golf Club. But it doesn't end there. We have school buses that travel this road and pick up children right here, here, and here again. We have runners. Mr. Driscoll got lost. Sorry, he's right here. We have dog walkers. We have cyclists. Welcome to the neighborhood. As you can see, this is a very busy spot. There you go. I love our neighborhood. All right. You got my presentation? Now, a couple of things. Ready? All right. What we'll need to our quiet, peaceful neighborhood we call home? Well, first, we're going to have our houses inspected. Have our foundations checked, make sure there's no cracks. We've lost the project. We're going to have our houses inspected. And in my opinion, maybe it's necessary. I kind of deem it an invasion of privacy. Sorry, that's my home. I live there. I really don't want you there. No offense, just don't want you there. All right? Then come the graders. Here, take. Graders. Front end loaders. Well, I guess that's not a front end loader, but we're working on it. All right. Graders and front end loaders. Go ahead, keep putting them up there. You don't have to wait. Just put them right on. All right. Backhoes and scrapers. Trucks to stage the area for excavation. When the berms are in place and the parking place is all set, and the well is dug, and the trailer is in its place, it starts. First comes the drilling. The driller is there somewhere. Then the blasting. And then the moving of the material from the blasting to the stockpile. Over here by the cemetery, I guess. To be crushed by the crusher. It didn't make it up there, but that's okay, you get the picture. To be hauled away by more trucks. Again and again and again, and according to calculations, for many years to come, we're not sure if it's 34 and a half or 75, but somewhere in between there. 3 million cubic yards, truck after truck, pile after pile, until there is nothing left. That will be our neighborhood. That will be the first thing you see driving into New Durham from Wolfboro. Welcome to New Durham. There's a big hole in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood extends well beyond the abutters shown here. We've got people in Copper Crown. We've got people in Shawty Pond. We've got people friar tucking all along this road. We've got people around outside and down the other. We have members at the club here who are very concerned about what's happening with this project. We asked the zoning board to be in compliance with the New Hampshire State Law, Section 135E4, and deny the special exception being sought by Greenwich Realty for this project. The value of the materials that will get does not outweigh the value of our neighborhood. We operate a major residential neighborhood in this area. Thank you very much for your attention.
Any board members have any questions?
Could you please point out, because I haven't had time to read your submitted document on this and for speech language, if there is any reference to the distance measured from the source?
I don't know. It says being at close range is to a single extremely loud shotgun talks about that. I don't know over distance. I think that really depends upon, of course, if there's anything such as heavy wooded area, which we don't have a heavy wooded area there anymore because a lot of the woods got taken out by the previous owner. If the other buildings, I don't know. So I don't have, there might be more information. I can look for that. I'd be happy to find that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Is there any other
Well, my name is Deidre McKenzie. I live directly across the street at 426 Kings Highway. All right. I don't have a big presentation. I just came with our views. We just moved into our house on September 30th of this previous year, 2016. Apologize. We didn't know this was going on. We called the town of New Durham, and after, I don't know what I'm doing.
I think it's your cell phone. It's not happening to me.
Thank you. I apologize. She's probably right. We called the town before we purchased the property, and we were told that there were no plans whatsoever for across the street. We deliberately purchased in a place that had this type of zoning. I suffer from severe migraines. We looked for a place that was quiet. We came on multiple occasions. I'm talking like 20 different times to see this home at different times of day, different traffic patterns, and we specifically did this because of the noise, because of the fact that my migraines are so severe they can last more than 24 hours and sometimes up to a week long. I'm on medication for that, and it does affect us greatly. I have children. Our bus, the place where they pick up the children for school, is at the bottom of our driveway, which is directly across the street from where he wants to send trucks out in and out of. I look down the road towards Wolfboro from my driveway when my children are picked up from school. As I look through to the stop before us, which is at Friar Tuck, the road right at the end of Friar Tuck, and for me, I'm not a professional of any kind, but for me, you can't, it winds. There's no straight 400 feet that he's talking about. Turn the other way and it goes to a top of a hill, which is a blind summit. There's no another 400 feet, which he said I think was 390. This is, when I drive out of my driveway with a small personal vehicle, it's a Volvo, and when we drive out, you have to literally look both ways repeatedly because of the fact that there is no clear sight line. We've even thought about putting a mirror on the tree across the road so that we could see better up and down the road. So for me, when he says that this is an easy thing to bring these big, enormous trucks in and out of, where my children are getting on and off the bus, scares the living daylights out of me. We also foster children in all of our previous homes. We just moved from Scotland to Utah and then to here over the last 16 years. And we foster children. The state of New Hampshire has said that they will wait to approve us to whether or not he is approved across the street, because they don't want to put foster children that close to what they call an industrial environment. So for us, that affects us. It was also one of the reasons why we bought a home as large as we did, so that we had the room to bring these children into, because this is the type of lifestyle we wanted. I know that the people back here were talking about animals and going across, and I know this doesn't make a whole lot of thing. There's a family of 7 turkeys. I know this doesn't make any sense to anybody, but they migrate all over. They come up our driveway every night at 5 o'clock like clockwork, and they go up their property, which for us, that was part of the fun of having, my youngest is 6, and he thinks it's great to be able to watch the turkeys come up, and he can clock on the that they're coming. This will change the type of environment of the home that we purchased, that we were excited to have. All the concerns that everybody else has brought up, I'm not going to go into, because for us there is the dust, the noise, the traffic, that all this matters to us. But really, truly, I think the biggest issue for us is the fact that this is, if we knew this was going to be across the street, we would not have purchased the home. That would have been the breaking point. We would not have done it. It would have not been the type of zoning we were looking for, and we very specifically were looking for a residential environment, recreational, agricultural, which is exactly what we got here. So for our point of view, a firm, huge, loud no. Please don't let them come, and don't rezone it.
You said that the state will deny your request to be foster parents?
They have said that they will not approve us until this is settled, because they do not want to put children in the home across the street from this.
Have they cited a specific regulation or statute, or done that in writing?
They haven't done it in writing. They've told us over the phone that they looked into this and it was their, otherwise I would have brought it, but they said that that they had looked into the location and they knew of the planning, and that this was in place, that this might be in place, and that's all they've told me. So it's all been verbally over the phone that they've said it. I can request it be in writing, but so far this has all been verbally when we're talking back and forth. They have our complete application. They've been out to the house. Oh, that's the other thing. I also had the assessor come out to the house, and he said it will change our property taxes.
Who was it?
Jeff Evans from New Durham. And I just saw him a week ago Wednesday. And he said that will affect our tax. And he actually physically came and walked the house.
Does anyone else have any questions for Ms. McKenzie?
Heidi Kendall Hatfield.
Just get closer to the microphone.
Heidi Kendall Hatfield, Town of Wolfboro Butter and New Durham taxpayer on Kings Highway. I do have some paperwork, if that's okay to pass out.
What was being given is a stormwater pollution prevention plan and pictures of the highway that were taken today, did you say? The stormwater pollution prevention plan is dated March 15th, 2016.
So you have the stormwater prevention plan. You have pictures, as she stated, from today of the road in front of the proposed excavation area. There's also other material that'll detailed, and included on the back are letters from residents, especially around Russ Pond, with concerns that couldn't be here today to speak. We're obviously here because we all have grave concerns in regards to the quarry, the mine, the excavation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us tonight. I know it's getting late, so I'll try to be as brief and quick as possible. The ramifications of this type, and I will call it industrial business, is far-reaching. The heavy trucks loaded with rock will be barreling down the road in our area, sharing the road with residents and school buses. Noise, vibration, dust, and other environmental problems will blanket the area. The high probability of contamination to our aquifer systems, and not to mention the plummeting property values for residents, which will in turn result in the dropping tax revenue for New Durham and Wolfboro. By allowing this type of industrial business in this area, the town of New Durham is setting a dangerous precedent to occur and opening the door to other such industries to follow suit in this area and other rural residential areas in New Durham. I'd like to address Green Oaks Realty's excavation proposed plans. Currently, there is no pending permits for an alteration of terrain permit or a SWEP permit, which I've included with you today. The state has provided us with a completed SWEP permit, which will be needed, but it also has a lot of relevant hazards, and that would be health hazards that would be needed to be advised on this plan. The SWEP permit applies to stormwater protection plan of a disturbance of 1 acre or more. The plan submitted by Mr. Babb included 2 stormwater infiltration areas. Tonight was the first I've heard of any stormwater infiltration plans. So I will say concurrently, there has been no engineered plans for the calculations for the flow and runoff for the stormwater infiltration systems. Also, the plans for the stormwater infiltration area are within the 75-foot setback, as noted on the paperwork that I gave you with the red tab. There was already a problem with water runoff in some of the abutting properties. An independent engineer firm would need to be hired with Green Oaks Realty as the payee to determine the detail of the stormwater sediment pond. If the water is able to be contained in the pond, or would a flooding problem be caused by the stripping off of the topsoil? In the proposed excavation site, I do not see a test pit indicated. Along with the test pit, there should be numerous monitoring wells located on the property that would need to be periodically tested before and actively during the excavation at the applicant's expense. To address some of the blasting ramifications, perchlorate, which you'll see in your handout, I go into more detail about the ramifications of that. Perchlorate is a dangerous chemical associated with blasting and can have catastrophic health ramifications once it has entered our aquifer system. Recently, the town of Windham, New Hampshire, had an incident where ledge, similar to what will be being blasted here, was blasted for a subdivision, and the perchlorate contaminated all the surrounding wells. This directly applies to the criteria that the excavation in this area would create a nuisance and health and safety hazards. What would happen if our wells became contaminated? There is an estimated 75 homes in less than a 1-mile radius to the proposed quarry. with the potential of damaging occurring to the wells, foundations, and structures. With a current cost of at least $10,000 for a well, this would equivalent $750,000 from damage done by blasting or other detailed quarry and pit operations. The damage that can be done to the nearby wells include offsetting of the well casings, the diversion of water from the wells, damage to the pipes leading from the wells to the homes, and the interception of the source of the aquifer and the diversion of the water from the wells. And once again, the greatest concern of all, the groundwater contamination. And obviously in this area, there is no public water source. I also want to note to the board the highlighted map marked with the green tab. As it already was said, Mr. Babb is obviously planning on forever changing the landscape of our neighborhood with the future excavation of 3 million cubic yards, unless he's expecting that to get that out of the supposed 1.8 acres. Please further note, if you use the scale provided on the plans, the excavation actually, the highlighted excavation area in the dark actually equals out to 3.27 acres, another fallacy indicated on the excavation plans. This is noted on the map with the red tab, and I wrote down how I came up with those calculated figures. Excavating 3 million cubic yards would take out the watershed and forever change the aquifer system. I plead with you to carefully consider this application. The board's decision cannot take away our neighborhood, but with one vote, you can ruin the health, the safety, and the environment of the neighborhood that we care so much about. Thank you.
Good evening. Yeah, sure. Sure, good evening. My name is Stacy Trites. I live at 338 Middleton Road. I don't know my lot number, but I am the immediate abutter on the Wolfboro side. So I think I abut lot 10. My husband Tom and I live there. We built our home there 15 years ago. We moved from South Main Street in Wolfboro specifically to that neighborhood because we were looking to get off a busy road with heavy traffic. I have, you should have a letter from me tonight dated April 10th, and I won't go in the, given the hour, I won't go into the detail of it, but I'll highlight a few items and ask that you do read it in full before you give this consideration. And then I want to just touch on a few additional points that were raised tonight. You know, in my letter, I touch on all those items that were brought up before: hazard to safety, hazard to health, diminishing property values, offensive noise and vibration, excessive traffic, changing the character of the neighborhood. Back in January, when this went before the Stratford County Regional Planning Commission's Regional Impact Committee, over and over again, they noted not enough information to make a determination. And I think still we're at that point tonight. I think our gut and a lot of facts tell us that there are negative impacts, but what those are, the applicant would have us wait and see or take his word. And I'm not comfortable with that, and I don't think my neighbors are either. Hazards to health, I'm concerned about increased exposure to radon, both airborne and waterborne. As mentioned before, the perchlorate, you know, blasting agents and explosives have been found to contaminate drinking water supplies. I have asthma, so this is gonna go on for 36 plus weeks of the year. So do I need to have my windows closed for 36 weeks of the year just to help keep that asthma in control? I don't think that's fair. I don't want to be redundant, so bear with me 1 second. So, Mr. Varney earlier talked about our road, Middleton Road, Kings Highway, as being a good-sized highway. It's not a good-sized highway. It is not a Route 11. It is not a Route 28. And I would ask, has the ZBA had a site visit of you've been up there for a site visit? So you know what I'm talking about. There are, Route 11, Route 28, they have defined shoulders. And as my neighbor said, it's hard to, I have to look left out of my driveway, I have to look right, I've got to look left again. There are very few straightaways. It's curvy, it's hilly. I just don't see the comparison, and I don't see the safety. The traffic study. So early on, at a meeting I wasn't at, maybe that goes back in an initial discussion with the planning board, the traffic impact numbers were much higher, and they seem to, those estimates keep seeming to be less and less, and I don't know why. But I wonder, they talked about a 2% increase in traffic. But what's the weight increase? Okay, so maybe we're not gonna have 70 trips a day, which we originally heard. But the vehicles that are gonna be on the road are gonna be a lot heavier than just your average car. There was talk about no view shed, and I know probably view shed is a technical planning term, which I couldn't define for you if I had to. But on one of the slides that was up there was green marker shaded all over that. Well, to me that implies that there's trees there right now. The previous owner, probably 2 to 3 summers ago, logged the property. I look out, my kitchen window faces this, and we have a long, narrow lot, so we're pretty close to the property line of this property. I can see well into that lot, especially this time of year. It's April, I can see it. And for the first time on this plan, I see this fence. I've never seen note of this fence by my property line before. I don't know what it's built of. I don't know how high. So, okay, maybe that will give me a little visual shield. But as the applicant's rep said, it's really not going to take care of the noise. I don't see how that would contain dust. So again, are we back to 36 weeks of the year where I need to close my windows? I can't enjoy my outdoors. And then we get into the blasting. So the applicant has said he's going to use a reputable third party, and I don't doubt that that company in Maine is reputable. But okay, I've got an issue now with my well or my foundation's cracked. Who am I supposed to go after for that? Am I supposed to go after Mr. Babb? Is he going to tell me to go to the blasting company? What happens to my well? I don't have extra money. I'm putting kids through college. I don't have money to put out to get a new well done or a well repaired while they argue over whose fault it is and if they cover it at all. I can't be home all the time providing water samples or monitoring days of blasting. I don't know. We work full time. This shouldn't impact my life in this way. I think that covers my major concerns, although I stand behind everything that was said by the abutters and their representatives before me. Again, if you would look at my letter, and I ask you to deny this application. Thank you.
We have been requested to allow Mr. Babb to speak. We are now hearing from the abutters. We'll be allowed to speak at, obviously we're not going to finish the public hearing tonight. But we will have you speak at the next meeting, and we will announce the time and date before this meeting is over tonight. Other abutters, legally recognized abutters.
just ask a question? Can I just ask a question for the record? These additional documents that are going to be, I assume, provided, you know, the vibration study, the noise study, the Realtor's letter, are those going to be available to us, you know, through the town's records?
Any document that we've been provided tonight should have been provided to Mrs. Stowe, and you can contact her in regards to what we can provide, cannot provide. I'm not sure if we were going to make 8 copies of this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? If all of the others have spoken, I would, make sure I do this correctly, I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for the application from Green Oak Realty Development to continue on May 9th at 7 p.m. We will attempt to get the school again. We will just have to see whether or not it's been reserved. If it is not held here at the Durham School, we will utilize the Durham Community Room, which is located behind the fire station. Is that clear in the motion?
I move to continue the public hearing as Mr. Jarvis announced to May 9 at 7 p.m. either at this location in the school or in the fire station.
Motion by Mrs. Richards, second by Mrs. Anderson. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to continue the public hearing until Tuesday, May 9th, please say aye. Aye. The motion passes.